So, hey, thank you guys for this is kind of cool. I think Edward, Andy, and I had this like random conversation about how there might be like 10 of us in the world to just talk about this in some random channel off the internet like a couple of months ago, and it's actually happening. So this is really cool. So yeah, I put together like some slides from just stuff that we have. Do you see?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'll just pull up the slides we got and just kind of run through, see, just give you little backgrounds of what we're doing and why we're doing this in the first place, things like that. So I think, why are we making decentralized game? That's one of the questions that obviously you get a lot, and we get a lot from our users and investors and stuff like that. And I think what we actually want to make is really like we want to give creative freedom back to the online gaming community. And I think like the best way to do it is through massively peer-to-peer online games. And like, what does that mean? So like, I think when we started thinking about, what can decentralized gaming provide, I think like it's really about, for us, like empowering community so that they can pioneer new genres of gaming or like create content that they've always wanted to create. Or just like, I think Roblox is a really interesting example where they're making tools for gamers to create content, and there are like 2 million creators creating experiences that like a lot of kids play. And so this is really cool. I mean, I've been a huge MOBA player, so I know all about the like Dota that became League of Legends and whatever that blew up. But I think for like massively multiplayer games, we've kind of like, people should want to edit, World of Warcraft, make new experiences, do something crazy, make like World of Warcraft racing if they wanted to, but it's not possible, right? And I think one of the reasons is really also technical, like you need to operate a server, and the content is served from the server, and data, everything is centralized, governance, your subscription, all owned by a single company. And I think one of the like really interesting example is like Nostalria's. I wasn't Nostalria's user, but I've met someone who've been like really involved with the process. And like World of Warcraft is going through patch after patch after patch, and they want to stay in the classics, so they kind of like reverse engineer and fork and have like 800,000 people like play in network, and Blizzard sued them, shut them down, and then released World of Warcraft Classic. And it's like really interesting, the potential like forking and community building opportunities where communities kind of get together to create and generate new kinds of content, but difficult to do when everything is centralized. At least that's our take. So we want to use blockchain to enable like massively peer-to-peer online worlds that are powered by the community. So like community ownership, it's serverless, massively distributed world backed on a blockchain. Infinitely moddable. Like, we'd like games to be open source. I mean, not all games that use Planetarium technology have to be, but like we're going to open source our games so that you can do whatever we want with it. And I think what's really interesting, and we should talk about this, in an open manner a lot more, is that like the world being perpetual has more implications than just like NFTs existing forever. It's like, it's kind of this sense that there's an autonomous state that like moves from autonomous world that moves from like one state to another. It'll always be there, and you can make things that can exist for 10 years, 20 years, and that's kind of a new challenge. And so tokenized economy is cool. We know that. And like, I think, so why make our own blockchain was kind of like the issue for us. And I'm sure you're experiencing this issue as well. Like, blockchain games are still inaccessible because like you got to buy tokens, and the KYC is getting crazier every day. And like, in order to just pick up a game on Ethereum, like you need to have ETH, and that takes like 2 weeks for you to secure outside of the network. So I think like, as a game developer, I used to develop games at Nexon, and like we think always about how to optimize the experience. The first like 5 minute, 10 minute, but like this is first 2 week experience in order to onboard blockchain gamers, right? Like this is not going to be really effective. So we thought, hey, like you should be able to download game, play, and have fun, but without servers. Like it should be decentralized, but you should be able to free to play. Like how does that even work? And so we thought through that problem from like the user and game developer standpoint, and wanted to do something a little bit different. I think there are multiple ways to achieve this. This is just one of the ways that we've taken, and like it limits us in developing certain types of games, but like we're better at building certain types of games, and we're worse at building certain types of experiences. But anyway, Live Planet is a new core, blockchain core that we built from scratch, and we thought, okay, so we're going ETH, EOS, Tron, like general purpose mainnet. When they have a lot of apps, you're going to have tragedy of the commons unless you have a specific, platform token that people like pay per action, gas fee, whatever. But what if you could quickly create a mainnet per application, per game application? And it kind of made sense for us in a way, like if you are creating a racing game, the network dynamics and the rewards might be different from an RPG versus like a simulation game. So, what if we could create a good mainnet for each game, be able to secure it, and be able to do that really quickly? And so I think in some ways we're a little bit similar to Cosmos or Polkadot in that like we want tools to create application-specific blockchain that is optimized for each game. So each game can have its own like independent token economy, and then like you can connect, you can work with each other through, inter-blockchain communication, which is another huge topic on its own. But at least that's kind of like the vision that we have at the company. So okay, so how are we going to make this new application-specific blockchain? And I've been using at Nexon, I made a game on Unity like back when I think this was like for iPhone like 2G or 3G, like very early in the day. But like it's really gotten a huge amount of momentum, and C# is one of those like strongest languages to develop games in. And we said, okay, if we developed a new blockchain on .NET Core, okay, it can be multi-platform, and it can work with Unity game in a pretty unique way. So if you are like building a typical blockchain game, like you're operating with the node through a smart contract, and like, but your app is not running the smart contract, right? Like, so you need a wallet, and then the wallet talks to Unity through like RPC or some mechanism, and then you also usually involve a server, and so it's kind of a mess. And Live Planet is interesting. Like it's a little bit similar to how you develop web applications or applications on Node.js, in that like server and client, they're like this single code base. So the logic that goes in, like here, you would put in smart contract, but instead you would just write code in C#, and it would just run in the game client as well as the node, and it'll connect to each other to form like this P2P network where it runs the actual computations required for the game. And I mean, if you have any questions like in the middle, or let me know. I'm just gonna.
Funnily enough, yes. For your architecture diagram on the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of the things that I was not 100% sure of. So I guess how do you actually do this on the right-hand side? Is it kind of like Xaya with storing the actions, or do you do a lot more computation inside the chain itself?
Yeah, we do the computation inside the chain. So that's something good, something bad. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get you.
Mm.
I think I might have misunderstood that the first time I read it, but now, okay, I think I understand now. Cool.
Yeah. So basically, the smart contracts are like some level of logic is running in the node itself, as well as the game. Cool.
Sorry to interrupt you briefly.
No,
I think for Edward's question, this is very much like if you were using Substrate, right? Except that you have integrated it probably more with the game and like with the front end part and so on as well.
So I guess it's kind of like a hunter coin kind of style of game, rather than
just as if you were building a game using Substrate. Not
exactly.
attaching to Polkadot, you build just the chain using the
Yeah. Okay. I think so rather than Torion, it's more like Hunter Coin in terms of architecture.
Yeah.
So it just runs on its own network in that way. So like we thought it's important to ship with features for game development, and we do like NAT traversal, cross-platform support, like peer discovery. We've like built in the RPC for connecting to the. Like I'll show you that with an example game demo later. And basically, like since we're making the game, I'm sure like Zaya is experiencing this too. Like it's very important to actually make the software as well as the technology that it is powering it, because like it informs you so much when you develop an actual game on top of the technology that to like really like figure out its feasibility, but also to figure out like what it actually needs. And so we've been just kind of building in features after features because like we needed to make and ship our own game. And like something we thought was interesting was like it's important to widen the audience for blockchain gaming. Like it's not going to just be stuck at 3,000 DAU, but like we want this to be fully decentralized. So how do we do it? And one of the key things we use is like rate limiting, with energy and in-game mechanics, so that like players are just not spamming or they don't need as many transactions in order to, like have fun. And so that's been one of the area that we've been working on. And so Nine Chronicles is like this is a reference application, but it's fully decentralized, and soon it will be open source when it launches. And we're looking for like mid 2020, and it's currently in closed beta, which means like everyone who signs up actually gets to play. But it's beta right now, and like as an adventurer, like you can overcome challenges, fight stages and battles, and compete with each other, find ways to play. But you can actually like run the node to mine, I guess, protocol gold, which is also used in gameplay, and you can like buy and sell items, and you can hopefully later like participate in politics. And I'll just kind of show you that through the demo. But like one interesting slide, like I think like we're a game company too, so we're trying to build an audience, and one of the things we've been investing into is like waitlist growth. And since I think like people, you don't need to learn a blockchain in order to get started, we've been able to onboard like more than half of our players are just like gamers. They don't sometimes even know that this is a blockchain game, and they come in and they start asking questions. And like one of the we do get like what is a blockchain question a lot in our Discord, which is kind of cool, I think. And like we've been doing some pre-marketing, but it's like been kind of like people are from everywhere. People, we're not just like concentrated in like one region, which I thought was pretty cool as a decentralized community. Like when we actually open source this and launch the game, like what kind of networks are you going to be, or are we going to be able to, form? And so that was an interesting point. And for the demo, let's see. So I have. Wait. Let me just switch off for just 1 second. Where is my application folder? So here we go. So in this folder, you see a few things, like one is an updater and one is an application, and the other one is also an application. And we've actually separated out the game client, which runs in Unity, from the, I guess, node, which is a fully .NET Core application. So like this doesn't involve Unity, this does, and they actually talk to each other through RPC. So I've launched Nine Chronicles, and it's like running the node in the background. And when you run the game, it'll launch Nine Chronicles, the application, which will talk to the node, which is also in this computer. Yeah, is this too loud?
No.
And hopefully we don't run into a lot of issues. Like we're doing, we've invited a lot of people to the closed beta, and we're like fixing bugs right now. So it's one of the characters that I created, and it's like it's going to be fully on chain. And what's interesting is so this is how much gold I have. This is the action power, the like rate limiting mechanism that we spoke about. And this is what we call prosperity meter, which is interesting. So when do we fill the action power for each player? Well, like we decided that like after, every 2,000 blocks, we'll go and refill everyone's action power. So like the world is ticking in time, and the ticks or blocks that are being generated and created from the server. So not server, from the mainnet. And so what's interesting is that, let's say I'm going to craft a new sword, right? Like it creates a transaction, but we don't give it to the user right away. We make them wait a certain number of minutes in order to actually receive the item in their inventory, because we are basically building in delay as a game mechanism for each step of the way. So we'll go and check back.
So one question that's actually interesting. So you're saying that the game refills action points for all players at some point. Like every so often you have like a checkpoint, and then you just refill the action points. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So obviously within that time, the players can deplete their action points. So you get some amount of like spam protection. Obviously, they can. There's a rate limit, which is interesting. So do they, for example, get these actions for free? I mean, I know in the demo that you have right now, the beta, that they do. I'm just wondering if that will also be true when you launch to mainnet, if anyone can essentially have some free option.
Yes. You will get to play for free in the beginning, and through the end too. So like everything uses action power. So creating an item, crafting an item uses action power. Like a lot of the mechanics, like participating in the arena, like doing PvP, uses action power, and we are aiming to give action power to users who do free to play. And if they want to play more, they can actually buy energy potions from the shop. And what's kind of interesting is that, so who is giving out these energy potions, right? And I think like our interesting mechanics is that like energy potions are created when you stake on the game. So we have Nine Chronicles Gold here. When you stake your gold in the game, you can actually obtain potions that you can buy and sell to, you can use or to sell to other players. So like we're actually really interested in like tokenizing the game in-game economy, so that like we don't set prices to things, but like players come in and get to play out. So if we acquire a lot of users, like energy potions, people will want to buy them. So the supply is steady, but the demand goes up, and like people who stake in the system might be able to make money through participating in this in-game economy. So that's one of the interesting things that we've been like really thinking through.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting, tough problem to solve. So the energy potions come through staking rather than player crafting, right?
We're thinking about involving player crafting too, but mainly through staking right now. At least that's our
Because there's an interesting dynamic in there. If players can craft their own energy potions and give themselves energy, I mean, obviously not to say that it's impossible, but obviously it's like an interesting take, because it lets players kind of pay for their own subscription, which is not necessarily wrong. It's not necessarily wrong, of course. It's just more. It's an interesting mechanic that I think we've seen in traditional MMOs, and this is where I'm kind of interested and excited to see how it can be replicated within a blockchain MMO.
So here, this is interesting. So everyone gets 4 workshop slots. That means you can craft 4 items, only 4 items at any given time. Like everyone has 4 workshop slots. So what's interesting about this is that this is the number of blocks that it takes to craft a casual clothes. It takes 2, but we're going to have ingredients that takes like maybe 100 blocks to create. So what users can do in order to buy the potions is like to use their workshop to create ingredients for high-level players to purchase. So they'll gain gold, and then with that gold, they can go and buy energy potions. So you're not like creating energy potion right away, but in time, you will come and receive by like just transacting in the game as a regular player. So that's one mechanism. So I'll just run through just one of the levels.
Can I maybe ask you also about this free to play some more?
Yeah, of course.
Namely, how do you actually prevent people from just creating 100 accounts and using the free action points with each of them?
Yeah, so we're going to build in referral mechanism so that like not everyone can sign in immediately. So there's like each player, when they play for a certain number of time, can invite other players to join, and also we'll just have a limited number of keys that we give out to players in the very beginning.
But I mean, I don't know what you need to do to receive these, like what kind of play you need to do. But couldn't I just write a bot that does some very simple things with the free actions and just run it over time, and then I get more keys and can invite more and can spam the chain with that?
So I think one is like how slowly can you do it? I think so. In time, there are going to be more and more players and more action points, being distributed at any given point. But I guess like how many users or simultaneous players can the protocol support is one question that we have to answer by just balancing out like how fast we give out the invitations. And I think one other way might be like once, I think activation is something that we'll kind of have to experiment with as we
of course,
yeah.
And also this idea of staking coins to get more action points, essentially, what you said, that is that reminds me of like what Bitcoin did 3 or 4 years ago, where they had this priority for outputs. So if you don't know about that, maybe it might be interesting to look into it.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about it more, actually.
Yeah, so basically the idea was just that like some part of the block was reserved for free transactions that you could do for free, but only if you spend outputs that had a certain size and have been like and a certain age.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you had a 1 Bitcoin lying around for a month, then you would get priority on your transaction and would qualify for this free block space.
Oh,
But
okay.
they've stopped doing that, I don't know, 4 years ago or something.
I think that's a really good strategy. We haven't quite figured out like specific plans for the eventual rollout, but yeah. I mean, if you have any suggestions or like questions like that, it would be really helpful. So here, like, we decided to move to the next stage, and like right now, like we're waiting for the block, but this character is essentially like walking through the forest. So you'll see this forest walking a lot. It's like, and when the next block arrives, it basically contains the results of the fight, and the game is just going to be playing the results inside the block. I think the network's a little bit slow today, but yeah, we still have a few like problems to fix. I think the blocks need to arrive in time and get rendered by our PC like right away. But I think there's like some random delay that gets created, and we actually need to fix that. But yeah, we've been running through a lot of interesting like edge cases and issues while like doing this closed beta, and yeah, hopefully we can get all of this sorted out. I think our PC might have actually lost the connection.
While we're waiting on that, I have another question. And basically on your network, since you have like one blockchain for each game, you need for each game basically you have miners. So like how secure do you expect these chains to be if each game developer kind of needs to get their own set of miners and mining pools and everything?
I think it's a good question. I think so we will start with some amount of mining power to make the network kind of stable from the very ground to start with. I think eventually, and we're actually trying to get other players and companies involved through a partnership, where like they can also run like some of the mining pools, so that like we're not the ones providing all the mining power.
Oh, of course, yeah.
We're going to have some like interesting partnerships coming down that will like contribute to the mining power. Like, what about Hunter Coin? Like, how, I think Andy gave us like a history lesson a couple months back. How interesting it was to maintain a pool and to get the user community to work with each other.
I mean, in HunterCoin, it's a similar model to what you have. What in HunterCoin what we did in the concrete case of HunterCoin was that we had merge mining. So you could have, and there was actually 1 or 2 big mining pools involved in that, just because they could kind of do it for free. But still, even if you have merge mining, you need to talk to these pools and convince them and so on. And it seems to me that it might be, of course, you're doing this now for your game, but basically it puts the burden on the developer of each game that they need to do that again. If someone else wants to build like another big game using the planet, then they would have the same issue that they also need to find miners and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when like, this, I'm already mining from my machine by just like turning this on. And I think just being able to distribute mining, like I guess mining clients very easily to the gamer players themselves, gives us like an interesting option to, because like we have 30,000 people on wait list, and people ask if where they can obtain gold, and if certain number of percent of players actually start running nodes with their machines, then we will have a pool that's like, I wouldn't say it's like, would say that it's built by basically the players who play the game, and they're able to contribute to the network itself. Later on, we do see an interesting solution or like opportunities to work with like proof of stake or other kinds of mechanisms where they don't. There are like other mechanisms to maintain the security of the chain without relying directly on the group of players playing it.
Yeah, I think that would be very important in your case, because even if you have like 1,000 people mining with the GPU, I think, I mean, I'm not a miner myself or something, but I think that if you just wanna attack the network for 2 hours, that you can just rent more power than that for, I don't know, $100, whatever. And adding proof of stake in your case would help with that, I guess. Yes.
Any other? So right now we're at this phase of building in the initial set of experiences so that people have enough content to play and engage with it, and then we want to start building in like factions and items that need multiple people to participate to create, like world events. And I'm not high enough to enter the PvP arena yet, but contests within the game itself, so that it stays like more or less of an active community of players. So that's kind of where we're heading to. Any more slides?
May I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's a really impressive about this game, and it's amazing. And I have a question, and I wonder, do you propose this game to the person never touch critical currency or a normal gamer? I see your slide is about 60% people is never have experience about digital currency. Yeah, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Hello?
You can't hear us.
Can you hear us, Antonio?
Oh, sorry about network. Maybe I can type.
Oh, yeah. Maybe you should. I've actually had this problem with Dizzy earlier this week. Rejoining fixed it. I think even if Antonio types the question, if he can't hear me talk, maybe.
So there's a question here from Antonio. He's written it. Yeah, he's
But can you hear me when I speak?
Yeah, we. Oh,
I guess he can't. Maybe you have to type it.
I guess like Antonio needs to hear.
Or you just try typing.
I could type, but how do you get the beta people never touch digital currency to play the game? Oh, he's rejoining, right? Yeah, I think he's not in the channel right now.
Great question, though. Yeah, we can hear you.
Antonio, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I
Nice.
asked question in the with typing. Can you see that? Maybe you can share. Oh, sorry. I can.
So you're. Yeah, I saw the question. Yeah. Wait. So your question is, how do you get the beta people to play the game without purchasing cryptocurrency? Am I understanding the question correctly?
I think it might have actually been more about advertising. How did you find these people who are just like gamers and they're not cryptocurrency enthusiasts?
One is, so we have organic, and we're also acquiring people through ads, digital ads, and I think for Facebook it helped that our direction looks like a normal game. It's like multi-platform game, and we were able to get users who are just like interested in this style of art and this style of like game universe. And also we had a couple articles that go out, press releases, but turned into articles about how we're creating an open source RPG game that like people can come in and mod, and that was also like, I think that might have resonated with a group of players as well. I think the gamer. So the gamer has a pretty wide audience, and wrote a really nice article for us. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it looks really good quality though, Kijun. Nine Chronicles. It makes like a massive difference to anything, really, doesn't it?
I think
you do all the art internally with your team. The art, is that all internal in your team?
Yeah.
How big is your team?
So the total company is 13, but like our game team has 3 artists and 3 developers.
Yeah, they've done a nice job with the artwork. It looks quite crisp, and it just fits really well. It's nice.
It was interesting. Like in the very beginning, we just asked the art director, "Hey, like we want to let's do something quickly, and ship out something. Other blockchain games look kind of horrible, so let's just there's not standard is the bar is pretty low. Let's just do what we can." And she was like, I don't know, like I've got my style and I have to do it this way. Okay, that's yeah. It was interesting because like we were initially actually developing a web game. So it was JavaScript running inside the browser in the very beginning, and then we hired a game developer who was also passionate about game development and said, hey, like he wanted to use Unity. So we were like, okay, yeah, why not? And so we decided to use Unity to make the game and actually embed it inside the HTML5, But then at a certain point, we're like, maybe we can actually do this without the back and forth RPC if we can actually create a blockchain for a Unity environment. And it was pretty organic that way. I think the game development team just had a lot of desire to make something that looked good and worked like a game. I mean, currently it's got some caveats, obviously, like with the emerging technology, and where we have some work that we need to do with LibPlanet to make it like faster and make sure that like people can just get started right away. But I think the overall direction was like, we're game developers, we want to make a good game, and like in order for you to do that, we'd like to stay away from the they wanted to build a fully like multi-platform game from the very beginning, so we kind of optimized for that.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. That was actually one of my questions I was about to ask you about, whether you were going to use Unity potentially to consider doing multi-platform. Whether you would export the build to HTML5 at some point. I guess that's maybe still a relevant question. Does the game doesn't still talk to the node via RPC now, does it? You're saying it's a bit more integrated.
No, it does.
So initially it was a single thing. It was a single build. And then we decided to actually run the blockchain part separately because it makes that blockchain more performant. Like running blockchain inside Unity's main loop is probably not, the most efficient thing to be doing. We actually, it's so funny. Like once we actually separated out the blockchain part from Unity core loop, like the mining got like 20x faster. So we're like, okay, so right now we do have the Unity client talking through the node through IPC. It doesn't have to do it, but I think we chose it that way. So what's actually interesting is that, a Unity mobile client can talk to also a node, somewhere else. It doesn't have to be like exactly running on the same machine. So I think we've kind of like future-proofed ourselves so that mobile clients can RPC to node. But
also one I think very important aspect of this separation that we also have in Zaya is that one is, like you said, you can just run the node somewhere and talk from a mobile client, but also you can just run the node without Unity on a server and provide just a read-only web interface, or a cryptocurrency exchange could run it, so they can actually trade your gold directly and everything like that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how you get on with if you were to export a mobile version of the game that you have already. I don't know if you've tried that.
We were scared. We have not. Theoretically, it shouldn't be so bad, but don't want to scare the team.
So is in Nine Chronicles now, is there like a settings page where you can set your custom or PC details and put your own blockchain part on a VPS?
So right now it's just a JSON document inside the folder. It's not in the settings.
Oh.
It's like this. It's a file, launcher file, and it's got like peers and traversal servers and like what port to use and things like that. But maybe you could provide a setting to do that. What were your thoughts behind that question?
I just thought, yes, because if you've got that, then it's just dead simple to, like you say, just set it up on a VPS and then just change the settings in the front end. And then, like where Edward was saying, you could just build it for mobile, and Unity is like a little bit forgiving, but it probably would just work there and then, I guess, as long as you can build it for for Android or something.
if-
Obviously, you'd have to
if-
have your own VP. You'd have to maybe VPN to your own VPS or something like that, or use some other method.
So if you actually do this, like you separate the blockchain part, where is the wallet and your private keys? Are they in the Unity thing or are they in the blockchain node? So if I run the blockchain node on a server, will the server have my private keys, or could I share the server with like 5 friends?
I think that depends on the configuration. Like it can actually have the so the game client, Unity client, can actually have the wallet capability itself. Whether you want that or not, like, is also kind of up to how we design it.
Yeah, I think what Daniel's
Yeah.
sort of getting at there.
We'll,
sorry. Yeah, no. So I think
no, go ahead.
There's like a 5-second delay, I think then. Yeah, I think what Daniel's sort of getting at there is if you wanted it in a light mode and the blockchain component contains all the wallets, then it means you need to set up a blockchain wallet. Well, I mean, obviously you could change it, but for each user. Whereas if the user keeps the private keys on the wallet, then you're just accessing the blockchain part, like, which is our GSP, just for read only. So then you can have one serving many instead of having many blockchains for each person.
But I think in your case, since everything is actually C#, probably, like you said, the wallet part is just a C# class, and so you can then just decide to use it either from Unity or from the blockchain node, and you just build it the way you want to, I guess.
Yeah. In terms of user experience, will be interesting once we roll it out into mobile. On desktop, it doesn't matter one way or another because you can do both. But yeah. So on desktop, we used to have it in the client, but we moved it to the blockchain node, the wallet part. But we'll kind of have to see, trade-offs for mobile when it does launch.
I think if there are no technical issues, it makes a lot of sense to have the wallet part in the client itself rather than the blockchain node. But of course, then you also, I mean, for the wallet itself, you also need extra blockchain data. You don't need just the game state, but you need to get, list of outputs for this address or balance and things like that.
Yeah.
So that blockchain node then needs to provide that through RPC as well.
Right. So I think what's going to be interesting, I think in the design's perspective, I think we took the simple route to get there, like fully decentralized gaming, but just using proof of work. We know that works, and stacks that game developers would normally use, and building things on top of that. And I think once we have this out, I think it'll be interesting to be able to kind of take our initial design and sketch further, to see other kinds of possibilities with the technology as well. It's just there's so much work you need to do to just get to a working state. It's kind of incredible how teams are able to do it.
It's really impressive, Kijun. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess we still have time for more questions.
By the way, a little bit on that, and to Kijun as well, and maybe to Daniel as well. I'm wondering how the game logic is. Obviously, it's in C#, and always for all games in C++. But how much difference is there, for example, running a Torion on their platform? Obviously, we'd need some wrapper or whatever, or to rebuild it in C#, and also for Nine Chronicles to run on Zaya. Is there a massive amount of work between porting this game logic between the two chains?
I've thought about that actually as well a bit. And I think probably the biggest question here is how the state is stored. So for Torion and on our platform, I mean, we have the general platform is just you store some binary blob is the state. But like for the more complex games and the higher level ones, we use SQLite as a database, because then we can also do the reorgs and everything automatically using SQLite features. So I don't know how it works on Planetarium, but if a game is built using a database, or if on Planetarium we could actually use a database, then it would be pretty straightforward, I think, to port over the games.
Yeah, I mean, because we talked about this before, actually, for porting something to Substrate. I mean, a big part of it was actually just having like some sort of like RPC wrapper that connects to, you know, some blockchain on one side, and you've already got your game, which is mostly built, and it's just like the translation layer. I oversimplify it, but that seemed like that was where the bulk of the work was, this translation layer.
Yes, but that was just about, you know, the GSP runs, we just run the SIA platform kind of and just use the blockchain to relay data. I think if we were to use Planetarium or the other way around, then we probably should integrate it probably more. I mean, what we were talking about was building one substrate chain for, you know, all SIA games. And in this case, we are more talking about building one substrate chain specific to the game.
True.
That was something to look at.
Do you rely on any like SQLite features other than the features?
Not specifically. I mean, basically, the main thing is that just all of the code is written to, you know, use a database. Even though in Torion we have abstracted the data access layer, so we could just rewrite that maybe or something. The only thing that we use in SIA itself, in the platform itself, not in the game specifically, is this, like what I said when we presented our stuff, that there is kind of a feature that lets you record the actions and then kind of store a diff so you can undo it later. That is a SQLite specific thing, but it's only used in a platform. So if Planetarium has its own features for handling reorgs, the game doesn't have to think about, then that's fine as well.
No, it seems like a really interesting experiment, you know, because I think like we all have game applications, right? And we also have like infrastructure to run that application. And, you know, in some ways, a game is a game, infra is infra, and, you know, some level of cooperability would be interesting. But like once we actually start thinking in this mode, then we realize, okay, we need to do a lot more things very differently. Like we started using file store, and then moved to like purely C# storage called LightDB, I think. But then like that was not enough, and it didn't do compaction enough. So we recently moved to RocksDB from like Facebook and Google. But I think we do have an abstraction on top. But like, you know, once you start actually using a specific implementation of database a lot more, it does get, like the code you write does get more specific.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the core platform is not using SQLite specifically. So probably we could also, if we, you know, build this layer that we've built for SQLite, we could probably build it for some other storage system as well. And then the game could interact with that. The only thing that we would need is exactly this feature that you could somehow record and undo back to a previous state, or store a persistent snapshot or something. If the database supports that, that's fine enough. And that would probably not be too much work to do that for another database.